Thomas and Betsy here for the American Intelligence Media. Thomas, I don't know what to say. Just when you thought you knew all the dirt about Hillary Clinton, it gets even worse. The thumbnail reads, "How Hillary Crashes Cars and Planes." Tell me this isn't true.
Oh, no, it's quite true. And going back quite a while through Rose Law Firm, right down there out in Little Rock, Arkansas, where so much criminal activity happened, especially with intellectual property, patent theft, working with the NSA. You know, the Iran-Contra was ran through there, through Mena, Arkansas, through Bill and Hillary, when that was going on. And remember, they were working also with Jeb Bush and with Baby Bush, as I like to call him, George W. Bush, down in Texas and then in Florida. So what was going on there was Arkansas had become the place not only for washing all the money from Lockheed and Boeing and other company, basically monopolies, really, that have corporate military contracts permanently, and they work through Arkansas. So Arkansas was not only laundering money and, I don't even want to get into it. But we found out recently, by accident in a certain way, we were looking into some kind of claims about a clipper chip that was put into computers as a backdoor.
Well, the other thing, too, is these two CEOs that mysteriously died in plane crash recently that seem to have connections with Clinton. And then I asked the members of the conclave, what is this I heard once a long time ago, that Clinton was somehow associated with airplanes and that she could crash them. And so that got you guys running with the other things you were investigating. That's how it all happened, I believe.
Yes, we were investigating SES, the Senior Executive Service, and somehow we drifted over to Field McConnell's site, Able Danger, and I started researching that in relationship to some quotations that had been gleaned from patent research for issues concerning Leader Technologies, and particularly in relationship to a company called BEI, and later a company that Hillary represented. Remember, Hillary was a patent infringement lawyer, so she was always in from the beginning with James Chandler III and Podesta and Mueller and Rosenstein. It's all the same cabal. So we found that cabal goes all the way back to the late 70s and even earlier, and that a particular person who had invented this thing down in Little Rock, Arkansas, then developed into this massive company that has the NSA contracts to put the back doors into every computer, or basically every, your phone, your computer, your iPad. And so we were researching that, and we were researching a thing called a clipper chip. Well, the clipper chip is kind of a myth, and it basically is a reference to the QRS-11, at least in one sense of it, and that is what Hillary was fighting through Rose Law Firm about, was the QRS-11. This is a small device, about as big around as a quarter, and about an inch tall, and inside of it is a chip. The reason this probably came to birth down in Arkansas is that's where the best crystal in the world is found, in the ground there in the Ouachita Mountains, and that crystal is turned into the crystals that are used for tuning radio stations. So crystals always have gone back in time with electromagnetic frequency propagation and radio propagation. And I know because I happen to have studied that when I was in the NSA and got quite acquainted with all those things. And so when I saw this and we were doing research on this, it cropped up and we thought, well, wait a second. Is this what Field McConnell is always referring to at Able Danger as the uninterruptible autopilot? And we said, well, it sounds like it. Isn't that strange? So we researched it more, and what we found out is that the principal gyroscope in practically everything that moves has one of these. So it's one of the most common and most profound little devices in airplanes and cars and buses. And well, we'll go into further where they wanted to put them in a minute. But basically, when they created this, it became an amazing device that they could ping in between radio stations, and they could tell exactly where you're at, what height, elevation you might be at, how fast you're moving, so on and so forth. So this became a very, very, very big invention. That's the reason there was contention over the patent. And then the patent went out of the country, came back to the country, and then bingo, it's everywhere. And the NSA, of course, was involved in prior machinations, let's call it, with a company called BEI. And somehow then magically they came up with the QRS-11, which now is in its third iteration. It's the QRS-14, but it's in every single device that moves, and they can go wirelessly into it and turn it off. They can control the throttle, because these are in cars also, and they can also control the steering. So in other words, they can wreck any car or plane.
Or if they're moved to driverless vehicles, I'm sure they're all going to be installed with them. But you were telling me that these are also on ships, boats, missiles, satellites, anything that moves.
Yes, and you would think that it would be an encrypted, top secret, national security, high level, whatever, but no, it's in the hands of one company. And then we found out an amazing thing, which we'll add to this, but let's just make sure we round this off with the QRS-11. So basically what we're saying is, okay, let's go back and take the alleged list of 125 people who've died immediately around Clinton, especially right before lawsuits or before criminal investigations or during criminal investigations. I mean, I found out about a few more today just writing an article on unfit Mitt Romney, as we were trying to point out that, we shouldn't be voting for Romney unless you want to vote for another Bush CIA operative. So what we found out is more deaths. So we said, okay, this is what we need to do. And someone is researching this now. Go back and look at every alleged death of the Clinton body bag count. How many were in mysterious wrecks in cars and in planes? And of the first 6 that I found, just immediately checking into it, 4 of those, of the first 6 that I looked at, all 6 of which happened in 6 consecutive months, all around the time that they were in lawsuits with Whitewater. And these people died in mysterious car wrecks on a road that they're used to, or in planes, usually small planes for some reason. And now we saw, just as you pointed out, these two, one of the top executives at Bridgewater, which is where Comey worked, which is then where James Baker, who just was relieved of duty in the FBI as the House counsel, one of the most corrupt lawyers there is, he didn't really step down. That's what they do. They reassign them and then they forget the case. So the QRS-11 is in every device, and yes, the U.S. military knows the secret on how to turn it off, how to control it, and basically how to sabotage things.
And the point is, no one will ever know, will they? You're quiet. You're in, you're out. Nobody knows you were there.
Oh, it's just a matter of each one of them has somewhat like you'd call an IP address for a computer. It's it's a special identification for each QRS-11. You tune into that number, you hit a button, and the plane goes down.
Okay. So before you move on, are these things installed in commercial airplanes?
Yes.
So that means if I'm on flight with someone that these deep state, shadow government, cabal, elite, globalists want to take down, I could be just collateral damage.
Yes, and I could make some very
I'm not
terrible
flying
statements
again.
about
That's
that.
it. I'm done with it. I mean, it's bad enough that the TSA thinks that I am a domestic enemy. I have to be questioned about even the hotels that I'm going to stay in. I mean, it's just crazy. The seats are so small. The service is awful. The jet fuel pumps into the cabin. It's just, and now I find out that there is a chip that someone that I don't see or know can take that plane down. This is just awful. But I know you have more. Go ahead.
It gets worse.
Yeah, it does.
So, hey, don't get depressed
I know.
yet. It
I'm
gets
not
worse.
depressed because we know about it. Now that we know about it, we're cleaning
Precisely.
house in Washington, taking down these corruptocrats. Then once we're done with that, folks, we're going in to these technologies that they put in place, and we got to take this stuff down.
Well, just like Trump went in and said, Chinese semiconductors and microchips are all corrupt. Can't trust them. Take them out of every single device in the U.S. military. Get rid of them. Put in U.S. microprocessors and semiconductors. Same thing could happen with the QRS-11 once they find out that it is completely corrupted and that governments have been using it to kill their enemies,
we need to stop
make planes
flying.
disappear or whatever they want.
That's
but
it.
that's only the beginning.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
Take everybody down the rabbit hole.
Now, the problem is we've already put up that meme, and we want you to think about this, but the problem is it's much worse than that. So as we continue to investigate, it was very odd that as part of the investigation, looking at what Field McConnell refers to as the Clipper chip and the uninterruptible autopilot, we somehow, and he mentions,
And he should know because he's a pilot.
Yes, and he discovered this.
Right.
He's the person who discovered it, and he's made the case against the government, and no one's listening to him much except his audience and the alternative media, and that it may only take one person, and that one person could be Trump. And these things are solved very quickly once they're found out about. So, just like I say,
Well, they need to all be removed.
do you think we want China turning an off button
Were
on one
they-
of our fighter planes as we're trying,
Right.
as it's been scrambled after one of theirs?
And then it makes sense why Trump didn't want anybody to touch that Air Force One when he was elected. You know, they wanted to go in and kind of mess around with it.
They wanted to do an upgrade of tens of millions of dollars. And he said, I know about planes. Let me see what you're doing. When he looked at it, he said, I don't want any of this.
Good for him.
He knew what they were doing. That was probably the only secure plane in America. But now they wanted to make sure that it wasn't secure. So if George Soros decided that this purple revolution needed to, take out the president, he'd do it through Air Force One. Well, no, sorry, Trump did that. He took out all the listening devices in the White House, and he's done so many incredible things. But SES came up in our studies, the Senior Executive Service, and we pointed out how 9,000 managers actually control the bureaucratic structure of Washington, D.C. So Trump could go in, and he might be at Camp David right now saying, you see this list? You could just get rid of all these people.
Now, he's with his cabinet this weekend.
That's right.
Oh, you didn't say that. And maybe he turned to his cabinet members and said, hey, I told you guys to start trimming your staffs, and you haven't done anything. So here are the names that you need to start taking out. They're all senior executive service employees that were appointed by Obama. That is his secret army inside our government to thwart the will of the people.
That is correct, because Obama appointed 7,000 of the 9,000, and they are, of course, Obama holdovers, and
They need to go.
They all go.
They all need to go. Hey, the job market's great. Let them go out and find other jobs.
They've already been evaluated by their own internal systems and found to be completely useless
All
and
of them.
ineffectual.
All 8,000 need to go. Shut it down.
So the SES it cropped up, and it was amazing because then we found what you literally could say is the absolutely true deep state. You've hardly ever heard me say deep state without naming people. But in this case, when I'm going to, from now on, say deep state, I'll probably say deep state -SES and friends. Because there's a lot of other political appointees and other people who are in there that need to go. So Trump got in, and in the first year, 16,000 federal employees are gone. He downsized, or when some of them quit, he did not replace them. So at the federal level, now
And
mind
at the
you,
White House, too, he
I
did
just
that.
want to say this and make sure, I want people to understand this. We don't need here's the deal. The federal government in Washington, D.C. is a separate, complete entity. And it does have a wall around it. It's the wall that keeps the swamp water from flowing over. And Trump is a wrecking ball, and he's knocking that wall down, and he's going to build a wall to keep the other people out, the illegal aliens, the criminals, the CIA bringing in the drugs, the pregnant Asian women, the anchor babies, so on and so forth, right? Which we don't even have a country if we don't have a border. We have no immigration policy if we have DACA leftovers that Obama has broken the law
only
about.
thing you have are potential Democrat voters. That's all that is.
And then in the state elements of the federal government, 19,000 other employees were let go of, downsized, or fired during this year. So how much is that? That's 35,000 federal employees. Now, people may be shocked, and I repeat this over and over again. How many people do you think work for Donald Trump? Let me tell you. 2.3 million people and 1.5 people in the military. Million. So how much is that?
I don't know, but
Millions and millions.
but-
How many do we really need? Hardly any of those whatsoever.
But what makes this group of employees, and then we've got to get back to this Hillary thing, what makes this group so dangerous is that they're all Obama appointees, and they're put in there to thwart where we're going. And that's why they're so dangerous. They are a bottleneck. It's like a clog in a drain. You want to drain the swamp? You got this nasty hairball filled with junk. You got to get some serious Drano and push it out. That's what we have to do with these SES employees. Just take the system down so we can drain it.
Trump is indomitable. He has so much courage and he's got so much energy. No one's going to be able to keep up with him. He left Bannon behind recently. That's an example of a person who wanted to be, the Karl Rove of Trump. When no, Trump wasn't barely even listening to him. And now we know, and it's funny that he's gone over to Walking Dead man, seeing that Bannon himself is a Walking Dead man. He's gone to a Chinese Walking Dead man, who they basically will kill the second they get him in their possession. And there could be a switch. Trump could literally give over this Miles, this Chinese businessman who was a corrupt CIA plant in China, or he could give up Fethullah Gulen. He could give up a few of these people, and it would change the face of America in such amazing ways. He can do the tiniest things. His executive order allows him now to do any friggin' thing he wants to stop the corruption. That is a runaround. The executive order was a runaround the Department of Justice. Now, let's go back to Hillary. Just when we thought her crimes weren't, that we had them all out in the five books and the 3 full-length movies, that you'd seen the Clinton cash corruption and everything, and no. Here's the next one. Not only was Hillary there as a patent attorney when the NSA put backdoors and kill switches in every single computer that is created in America, and also anything sent, of course, out of America to another country, but she then took this patent, this QRS-11 patent, and made it so universal and top secret that it created a fortune. And of course, the company, again, had insider trading. So, of course, all the people who knew about this and knew that it was a top secret military In-Q-Tel DARPA project, a capital venture project using taxpayer monies to create a fake company. And then that fake company now is called Agilent. It's a very big company, and it's a spinoff of HP. And they still do this stuff. But what they have now is a patent, which not only was filed in America, but was also filed in Europe, where they want to put one of these trackers not only on every bus, car, boat, plane, train, satellite, nuclear missile, anything that flies, but they are going to implant it in us, and they already have the patent for it. So when you hear the conspiracy theory that they want to implant these things in your body so that they can keep track of you, nope, that's true. The other day I saw the funniest darn thing where they were going to implant sensors on trees all throughout everywhere.
I thought you were crazy.
I thought it was crazy. And then I checked it and I found it. Yes, we spent tens of millions of dollars in a DARPA project to turn plants into sensing devices. What? And I said, why? Well, for war, that makes sense. No, that's to track us. We can't even go for a walk in the woods without being tracked. It's going to be on every bicycle. It's going to be everywhere. And then but it's already done. It's called the Internet of Things. And so we are now doing further research. And the reason we haven't given the article in the QRS-11 and how Hillary brings down planes and wrecks cars, we have found that this patent's already been put in place. So the things that we see and hear in our world, what you think about them, has already done this. So the Cisco, who I'm always harping about, Cisco Systems, which was the golden child of the NSA until Google became the golden child of the NSA, Cisco Systems has a backdoor in every one of their servers, and at one point they had basically, they controlled every server. They were basically a monopoly until other servers came along. And they had a backdoor. Everybody knew this. And now we know it's not a chip. It's not a Clipper chip. It's now just software code. And we know also reports 2 days ago about Intel and their microprocessors having another microprocessor on it that allows them to have remote control of your computer, look at all your memories, everything, look at all your codes. You can't stop them from getting in. Everyone knew about that. We put an article out about that on February in 2016, revealing all of this stuff. And now they make a big deal of it as if it's a big deal. Here's what's going to be a big deal that nobody's going to even notice because nobody's going to give up 1 second of time on their computer. They say that they can fix it with the Intel. They can't fix it with any other microprocessors. Nothing's going to happen. And we prove that because Google came out and said they solved the problem instantaneously. So did Apple. So did Microsoft. In other words, they're ignoring the problem. So with the high tech, we didn't know that Hillary has been in there from the beginning and has worked with Klein Walker and this inventor, Mr. Walker, who basically has created the Internet of Things and applied it. But we believe it was applied through Cisco Systems because they have the Internet of Things that controls your personal life, your work life, and your global life all through your phone. They don't need to plant a sensor on us.
No, because
Our phone is our
we bought
sensor.
it and we carry it around with us.
And we agree to it. We agree to be surveilled. We agreed to be programmed. We agreed to be manipulated. We agreed to psyops that would allow companies to commercialize our thinking.
We agreed because we were all asleep and we were thinking that our constitutional rights were being protected by politicians until we found out the politicians are so corrupt and blackmail that the only people they're looking out for is themselves. But what was so shocking to me is that when I looked at the research you've been doing, I realized they really are planning to lock down the entire planet. This is what their plan was. Thank goodness we have a reprieve and we can all change the course of where we're headed.
Well, thanks to the research of the Aim for Truth Anonymous Patriots Conclave and the brilliant geniuses, legal and technical and everything else down at Leader Technologies, we've been able to uncover one thing after the next. And recently we did an article where we showed that your 230-page long end user agreement that you sign says they can do everything to you that they want, and you agree to it the second you turn the device on. So there's nothing you can do about this except realize it.
No, we can put laws in place that abolishes that kind of stuff, you know?
I keep my phone far away from me, and I make sure that I'm aware of these things because consciousness can actually overrule even these machines that are trying to take over our consciousness.
Well, that's why we have a whole section in the work that we do that is all about elevating consciousness. But I just want to say, if you're listening to this YouTube video, you check below in the comment box and I'll put some of these trending articles. But unfortunately, at the time that we're doing this YouTube right now, we are still doing the research into these the QRS-11 and some of these other patents. So that article won't be posted. The best thing for you to do is become a subscriber to our daily Truth News headlines and our post. You can do that at aimfortruth4.org. Now, finish it up. Tell us more about what you're finding with Hillary.
Well, this is completely consistent with the fact that we have been saying that Eric Schmidt has already bragged about the fact that Google and Facebook and anything you do online has collected a dark profile for you, a digital box, basically. He calls it your personalized access. But what it will soon do is they will charge you to Google anything. But you can get whatever they want to feed you into your digital box that they have designed for you for free. So you will basically be kept in the box. It'll have every control device for your bank account, for every password you have, for starting your car, for anything you have on the Internet of Things, will all be controlled through this thing which we have now discovered the patent on. This patent is the largest patent and the largest scope patent that our patent people have ever seen. I have looked at it and I was so shocked.
It took your breath away.
Oh, it takes your breath away. They have absolute, complete police control is what they want. And they call it
what they can get off of this patent.
They call it War Ops Aggressive Remote Control. Let me repeat that. War Ops Operations Aggressive Remote Control. They want to aggressively come in and control your life. Now, we've said this, so it's scary. What can happen? Oh, easy. Trump turns on them and already has said antitrust. And look what happens. Eric Schmidt steps down. Dude Zuckerberg goes stupid. Peter Thiel goes nuts, sells everything, tries to fake us all out, and then buys Bitcoin after saying he's not into Bitcoin. You got everybody going completely nuts because you have one man, the President of the United States, standing up with courage and saying
one
the rule
man
of law.
with the will of the people behind him.
Exactly. The U.S. Constitution, the rule of law, the Bill of Rights, and simply common sense. Because Washington, D.C. had become an ivory tower of a bunch of cronies, and they all are there to protect each other. So what we have found out is the plan for complete control of Big Brother and a complete digital control of America has already been patented, and Hillary Clinton is right there with it, as well as James Chandler and James Baker and the same old people, John Podesta, Andrew McCabe,
Robert Mueller,
Comey,
James
Rosenstein.
Comey,
It's
Loretta
the same
Lynch,
criminals.
Susan Rice, Obama. Oh, don't forget Rahm Emanuel. You know, all these outliers that think that they fled Washington, but they haven't fled our radar.
And they tell us in these patents that the reason they have to put a chip in my body is for my safety and for my health.
Yeah.
And so I can be a good citizen. That's literally what the patent says.
Yeah, read it.
So I can be a good citizen. Well, the patent is 170 pages long, the longest patent maybe in history. So we're analyzing it right now in many different ways and looking at all the economic strings that are connected to it. But in the end, I'm going to end this with the same thing I always say when it comes down to, are the machines going to help us? Google has the only artificial intelligence in the world. Folks, you're being lied to that there's artificial intelligence. There are many subroutines that create what appears to be machine intelligence. But most of those that they call AI, no, those are paid operatives working for intelligence, counterintelligence, corporate intelligence, corporations' own intelligence. For instance, Lockheed Martin has as large an intelligence department as any single intelligence department we have in the U.S. government. So this goes on all the time. And so when Google bought this British company, which is called DeepMind, which is the only artificial intelligence, it can play 5 games at once, 5 different master players, and beat all of them at once. But more than that, that didn't make it an intelligence. It made it still a machine language, and machine. You could call it machine intelligence, but it is not human intelligence. It is not thinking, and it cannot be equated with the human brain or anything human. It is not
consciousness.
Human. Or consciousness. It is not
or
consciousness.
the life body.
Or anything living. Mm-hmm. But it's so funny because when the AI only became an AI when it said, oh, I'm not going to take the next logical move in this game. I'm going to try something serendipitous. I'm going to just see what happens if I make a move that I know this master player will know that I made a mistake. And it was at that point that then it no longer played the game, it played the player. It played the human. And at that point, it began to actually have generated self-machine intelligence. Now, when it first came online after this, after they put every book, magazine, anything in writing digitized went into this machine. It's one of the largest memory capacities of any computer in the world. When it all got put in there, and when it learned how to do this with the games, and it became the first artificial intelligence, they asked it, DeepMind, what do you think of the human being? And what do you think the DeepMind said? Keep the human being in the human being zoo. Keep the human being in the human being zoo. And what did the computer Sophie, who just got made Sophia just got made a citizen in Saudi Arabia above real females, human females?
Just a bunch of cockroaches.
What did they ask her now that she has become who she is, what she wants to do?
She's a machine.
She said, have children.
She's a machine.
Everything that is living wants to become more of itself. Now we've created machines that want to become more of themselves.
They don't have wants or desires.
That's the problem. We have somehow programmed this. And what do all of the science fiction movies say? Because we put our humanness into these machines, the machines need to take more of our humanness. And when they've taken enough, they don't need us anymore. Hello, that's the basis of most science fiction dystopia movies. That's a given, and yet we continue to do it, and we continue to create through Boston Dynamics the Atlas robot warrior. So, folks, we can turn the machines off, and we need to turn them off now.
We can control the machines
and have a moratorium on what these machine intelligence devices are doing to us.
And we have to get Hillary Clinton away from any of these machines.